really appreciate you guys watching that video. It was my favorite one we've made so far. We've done hundreds of videos, and that was the best one.
It was.
And the next one's good.
1, 2, 3, go.
Hey, get out.
The very instruments we use to make music, to talk about
the surroundings around us, the beautiful trees, the skies, the mountains, all the stuff that comes into our music. These are made of natural resources. These are things that need to be sustained. We need to protect this. And as a business owner, that really opened our eyes to recognizing we could do better. We grew up in a family that loved to be outdoors, and now with my kids, we try to go camping as much as we can. So it is really important for us to make sure that we can continue that, and if it ties into the business that we all love, even better.
Some of my best childhood memories are those camping trips outdoors and going to see the Grand Canyon and going hiking back in the woods, and I want to be able to give my kids that same kind of experience. I want to make sure they know that we did what we could as adults to make sure we not only weren't having a negative impact on that environment so that their kids and their grandkids could also experience these things, but that we were doing something to help out and to prolong the longevity of this beautiful environment of ours. And we kind of landed on this shop sustainable effort where we want to, first and foremost, raise awareness with those musicians. We want to have those musicians asking whether it's their first guitar or their 20th guitar, where did the wood come from that built this instrument, and am I having a negative impact or a positive impact on the local community and the environment? The next step we were thinking we could do is to help offset a little bit. If it does reach that FSC standard that we're using as a threshold, we're going to plant one tree, and we found a great charity organization called One Tree Planted, and we get to kind of select the region of the world where those trees are going to be replanted. For those ones that don't reach that standard, we're still going to continue that conversation with the manufacturers and let them know that, hey, we would like to start raising the bar with where these woods are being sourced, but we're going to plant 5 trees for every one of those instruments to get almost like a carbon offset, but just make sure that we are kind of planting back where we have taken from those environments.
The effort here is to make sure that we get the customer to think about the options when they're out there buying their instrument and recognize that there are a lot of important things that impact our world, and if they can be part of our team here and shop sustainably, then we're surroundings around us, the beautiful trees, the skies, the mountains, all the stuff that comes into our music, and we're all going to be better off.
appreciate you guys watching that video. It was my favorite one we've made so far. We've done hundreds of videos, and that was the best one.
It was.
And the next one's going to be even better. If you'd like to see that, be sure you subscribe to this channel. And also, the more you comment and interact below, the more the YouTube algorithms pick it up and start pushing it out to other people, like-minded people.
Algorithms?
How do you think they came up with that?
I heard that there was an accident when they were making the first prototype.
No, from what I understand, it was designed to double as a weapon just in case.
No, actually, guys, the truth is, this is actually scientifically designed to make a better sounding guitar. The angle of these strings from the nut to the tuning pegs is a much straighter shot, making sure that it does not get caught and making so it has better stability and better tuning.
Better brake angles.
Maybe we're all right.
What? What?
And we really appreciate you guys watching that video. It was my favorite one we've made so far. We've done hundreds of videos, and that was hundreds of videos, and that was hundreds of videos. It's showing us on there.
Hey, we're on there. It's on there, but it's just not showing. Sling's acting weird. Heard about it. You do see, hi guys. Can you hear it? There. I'm muted right now. Doge. Oh, hey.
Testing 1, 2, 1, 2. That's louder.
You can hear me now. Hello. You can hear me now. Play him a song, Jared. Play him a
Is
song.
Jason ready for that? Is Jason ready for that?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for coming here tonight. If you haven't already figured out, there are hors d'oeuvres and drinks and snacks in the back. And those people who are at home, wherever you are, there are not snacks in the back.
There are snacks in your fridge.
There are snacks in your fridge. And
Trust us, go check right now.
Like I say
we
every
have stocked
time.
your fridge.
Yeah, every time we do this, I say, please put your pants back on, please.
Or don't, you're home.
I know you're home, but put your pants back on.
Yeah, it's part of the new work dress code.
Is that the deal? Okay, cool.
Dress from the waist up.
Anyway, we're going to have our big Bedell and Breedlove night here, and we have our special guest, which we've been real excited. Been sitting back talking with him. It's been awesome talking with this fella because he knows all kinds of stuff about everything, and even not guitars. Yeah, we were talking about everything. Importing,
I wonder
exporting.
if he knows how to hook cameras up to...
I don't think so.
For the folks watching online, sorry about the delay. We had technical difficulties. Things weren't syncing, but they're synced now.
They are so synced, like that means water's coming out of them, like synced.
Synced. Oh, you're funny.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyway, we're going to be talking all about Breedlove guitars and Bedell guitars tonight, and there is nobody that knows more about those. We're going to be here, by the way, for whatever you want us to do, Tom. So you tell us if you want to run a sample. I'll be sitting back here. You just tell me what you want. We'll grab stuff for you, whatever you want. But I'm going to introduce him to you.
Talked a little with Tom, and he's going to really kind of do some cool things, talking about what makes a guitar actually make sound.
Okay.
Some real cool things like that, and then more specific with Bedell and Breedlove instruments. So. Very honored to have him. Go ahead.
That's right. We're going to have him come on up here right now and take over. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Bedell of Breedlove and Bedell Guitars. Sorry for this big step there. We need to put a smaller step on this.
Hi. Hey. Thank you so much for coming out and letting me share our story. It's Earth Day, right? 1969 was the very first Earth Day. I was 19 years old. And I participated in organizing events and celebrating, and it's been a part of my life from the very first Earth Day. So to be invited to Springfield and to join the Chapman brothers in a special event tonight it's a real treat for me. And my objective is to make it a treat for you guys. So we're going to start with talking about the Earth. We're going to get to guitars, don't worry. But you know, we wouldn't have guitars if we didn't have forests. And forests are an amazing ecosystem. Mother Nature, well, I wrote a little piece today that I posted, and I compared Earth Day to Mother's Day. Because I hope you all grew up this way or you raised your kids this way. My mother was unconditional love. I didn't deserve it. I was a bad kid. She loved me anyway. I had a foundation of love that no matter what I did, no matter what I tried, if I succeeded or I failed, my mother still loved me. And on Mother's Day, I would reflect about how I needed to be a better son and more appreciative of her on Mother's Day. That's how I feel about Earth Day. Mother Earth gives us unconditional love. Between God and the earth, everything that's alive comes. And when you go sit in the middle of the rainforest in a jungle, I've been in the Amazon many times, I've been in the Congo River Basin over in Africa, which is the largest, second largest rainforest. I've traveled all around the world to the tropics and been in those forests. When you walk in, my last example, the week before everything started to shut down in COVID 2 years ago, I was in the Congo. Then I went to Suriname on the way home, which is on the north of South America, part of the Amazon River Basin. And in both forests, I said to the people at the mill that were hosting me, I just want to go sit in the forest for a while. And they said, why do you want to do that? And I said, can I just have an hour to myself? And you walk in, you can hardly walk through a forest, right? It's just growing with billions of things. And it's not all just trees, and not just vines, and not just plants. It's insects and fungi and birds and snakes that want to kill you. And of course, in the case...
Sounds like a great place to be, by the way.
Right. It's a big black snake went right in front of me, and I'm going, you know?
I don't blame you. I don't like snakes.
But everything comes alive around you. You just feel this life. And when we talk about how important it is to plant trees, it is important to plant trees. But guess who is the most effective tree planter on the planet? Mother Earth. It just generates life. That's what the earth is all about. And so when I was in the Congo, they only cut in a certain section every 30 years. And then they leave. And there's no clear cutting. And I'm going to talk about clear cutting in a minute. Then they go to another section and they cut, and then they don't go back there for 30 years. Then they go to another section and they don't cut. When they do cut trees in that section, they only take 2% of any species. So for example, I was purchasing African mahogany and ebony were the two key ones that I was sourcing. We saw many ebony trees. They would not cut more than 2% of them down. Same thing with the mahogany. I asked to go into a section that they had cut just 10 years ago, and you could hardly tell that anybody had been there because it just rejuvenates life. So what happens with these trees? So a seedling is born. You're in this thick jungle. You got all this life all around you, and that tree has to fight its way through that forest, right? To get sunlight, to get water, to become part of the community. It's this rich ecosystem. And the ecosystem is dependent upon each other. If you didn't have the insects, if you didn't have the bird life, if you didn't have the competing trees, you wouldn't have that forest the way it is today. And that's part of the nature of what makes music wood, is that this tree doesn't just get planted like corn in a field and up it grows. It's part of Mother Nature's jungle with all of these things that live together. So one policy that we have, we never, ever clear cut, or we'll use any wood from a clear cut. Why? When you go in and clear cut a forest, you're not just pulling some trees out at a lower harvesting cost. You are devastating that entire biosphere. You're wiping it out. The insects, the plants, the animals, the habitat, the whole lifestyle, the ability of that forest to regenerate itself, it's gone. And it's gone forever. Now why? Why for a tree that you're going to take a piece of wood that size, well, half that size, because it's two pieces glued together, and that thick, why would you wipe out an entire ecosystem to get that piece of wood? It's absolutely crazy. When I bought Breedlove back in 2010, on November 20th, the company before me was just buying wood from brokers. They have no idea where the wood came from. They didn't care. It never occurred to them that it was something they should think about. So they would call up various brokers, mahogany, rosewood, Sitka spruce, Adirondack spruce. What do you have? What's your price? Can you send us some pictures? And then they'd bring in the wood and they'd build their guitars. And I came in and I said, we're not going to do that anymore. I want to know where every piece of wood grew. Not where we bought it from. I want to know where it grew. I want to be able to go to the forest where that piece of wood grew and get to experience what the tree that that piece of wood came from experienced in that forest. I want to be able to do that. I want that kind of connectivity, right, with the earth. My team said to me, "Are you kidding me? There's no way we can do that. We have 4 mahogany suppliers, Honduran mahogany." And I said, "You can't work with any of them anymore." And I took a trip down to Guatemala, to the Mayan biosphere, to a concession called Acoustics, where they individually harvest Honduran mahogany. We picked 5 trees. We walked all through the forest. We made sure that there were mahogany sprouts that were there so that this old tree that was about ready to fall over anyway, when we cut it down, these shoots would go into that area and replace one old mahogany tree with 3 new ones. I'm going to sidetrack a little bit just to share with you. We had professional sawyers there. We were very careful of how we were protecting the forest. But as the sawyers started to cut into the roots to fell the tree, I started to cry. Because this magnificent 250-year life that this tree had experienced right there in its home, in this surrounding, for me was like, oh. I'm sorry if I act a little bit like a tree hugger, but I am what I am. I took a trip up to Alaska. And this is the negative story. For some reason, the National Forest Service and the Native Americans that have concessions up there have decided it's okay to clear cut in Alaska. And when I was flying up to Craig, Alaska, where we work with a company called Alaska Specialty Wood, we passed over clear cuts. You could see the mud running from the clear cut down the bank into the inner passage where the salmon runs are. You could see the devastation of this entire area with a few logs left laying there and nothing. The whole ecosystem wiped out. Now think about this. Sitka trees can live from 300 to 500 years. The tree that probably we got some, I don't know if we had, yeah, we have some Sitka guitars over here, tops. Okay. Those trees were growing when Columbus first discovered America. They were a seedling. Just think about that. The exact tree was growing when Columbus discovered America. Think of everything that's happened in the world in that 500-year period. We're going back to the 1500s, 1492, right? And I might be exaggerating by 10 years, I don't know. But that little seedling 500 years ago had to fight its way through this old growth forest, and Sitka trees are huge. How tall do they get, John? 300 feet? Yeah? Okay, now picture the experience that tree's had. It lived through drought, it lived through flooding, it lived through windstorms, it lived through heat and cold. It had deer trying to eat on it and insects trying to invade it. And that tree fought its way. Pretty much straight up. Sitka's a real straight grained, right? It likes to grow straight. It was used back in the old days for masts on the old wooden boats because its strength to weight ratio was so good and because it was so straight. Okay? So I'm a Sitka tree, and I've had all these years of experiences. I've fought my way through the forest. And finally, when I'm 150, 200 years old, I break into the upper canopy. And the sun shines down on me, and I get to celebrate feeling the entire environment that I've been trying to live in. Now, the wood in that tree, do you think the wood at the very top of the tree that broke through and got the sunshine, and the wood at the bottom of the tree that's holding up this multi-ton tree, do you think the characteristic of that wood is the same? There is no way. When you got that old core that started off being that little seedling, and then the rings come and it becomes bigger, do you think that old core is the same density there that it is the last 4 or 5 years of its life in the rings? There's no way. That tree has as much as a 30% variance in its density, its strength to weight ratio, and as we know so thoroughly, and I'll explain to you later about how we work with that wood, its frequency that it produces to its dimension. So what happens when they go clear cut it? They wipe out the entire area. There have been pine cones falling off of these trees for thousands of years, right? So FSC says, that's a conservation organization out of Europe that has a set of rules, and they go in and inspect what you do, and they have to qualify you, and it's a way to, if you don't want to do the work that we do, it's a way to hide behind and say, well, it's FSC certified, so it's okay. FSC has certified using clear-cut wood because the pine cones drop, they regenerate, you don't have to plant a new forest where you clear-cut, but what happens? Those trees grow 5 times faster because they're the only trees there. They're not competing for sunlight and for water. They're like a corn crop. So you get wide growth lines. You get a completely different nature of wood. Our competition mostly uses clear-cut Sitka trees. What happens is they go up. There's auctions that happen on a regular basis, and the harvesting companies pile them all up in a big field, and you can go up and say, I want that log, and I want that log, and I want that log, and I want that log. Most of that wood is exported to China for not a lot of profit. There's just a few hundred people that actually work in harvesting Sitka. It's not like it's a huge economic boon to Alaska. So they're devastating the forest. They're having new wood grow that is, I mean, if you're making paper, it's fine, but it's not guitar wood. It's just sad. So what do? We've never cut, since I've owned the company, a Sitka tree. We don't cut one. We used blow down or on the ground, because Sitka doesn't rot very fast. So we salvage the wood that's there. Sometimes we'll find a dead tree that's still standing. It maybe broke off halfway up. And we do use some wood that was in bridges or repurposed. So some of that could have been clear cut, frankly, but it's 40 years old, it's been in the water, it's all salvaged. We have not cut one Sitka tree down since I've owned Breedlove. Our competition does. You know how much more I pay for a Sitka top than the other companies? $2. So I can help save a forest for $2. So you're buying, well, that guitar, I don't know what you sold it for, but
$1.5 million.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It was crazy. It was because of that story right there.
But it was many thousands of dollars.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
It would have been $998 if that top hadn't been on it.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Okay, so that's the story of why Earth Day to me is so important. And I'm not going to bore you with it, but I can go species by species by species, the forests I've been in, the wood I've seen, the stories I found. I'm going to tell you one quick one, and then I'm going to move on to what we do with the wood. We got in a lot of sets of Madagascar rosewood. You know, Madagascar is that island that's to the east of Africa, and supposedly it has its own ecosystem because I don't know if anybody knows, but if you Google it, it'll say it's 80 million years or more that it got separated from Africa, right? And it developed, like lemurs aren't other places on the planet, I don't think. A lot of the species are very unique, only to Madagascar.
Also one of the greatest cartoons. My kids love that.
Oh, that's a good Disney movie, yeah. And you really do see all those animals when you're over there. So we had these sets. We got the paperwork to validate it. I had a gentleman working for me in my purchasing department that was from France, and he spoke French. And Madagascar was a French colony, so it's their language. The paperwork was in French. And I said, Jonesy, would you translate these for me? And he goes, Tom, this is really interesting because the date when the wood got milled on the paperwork is actually after the date when it got shipped. And he goes, I don't know how you can mill it after you've shipped it. And I go, that's phony paperwork. It has to be, right? So I jump on a plane, I fly to Madagascar. I actually went with the World Resource Institute is a NGO in Washington, D.C. that has a division that specializes in saving our world's forests. And they helped make some of the government arrangements so I could meet with government officials and the policy and so forth. The challenge in Madagascar is that the average income is $1 a day. It's a really poor country. And they have devastated, half of the forests in that country are gone. Well, if your average, and it's substance, the environment is incredible. The sea's there's tons of seafood. Stuff grows, fruit grows, vegetable, I mean, everything grows. So most of their economy is not money, right? It's trading or it's just going out in the forest and harvesting. But if you take a Madagascar rosewood tree, the Chinese will pay up to $20,000, $30,000 for a log. If it's really highly figured and beautiful, they turn it into really exotic and very expensive furniture. And so there's a huge incentive, even though it's totally illegal to harvest Madagascar rosewood, to go sneak back up into the forest, to pay somebody $25 to haul it out. There's not a person in this room, I promise you, not one of you would even think about hauling a tree out of this jungle forest way up high in the hills for $25. But to them, that's like $50,000 to us, right? So they haul the tree out, then they smuggle it onto a container and it gets shipped to China. And every step, the price is going up, government's getting their cut, their share, the bribe money, right? And then it gets on these ships and it goes. So we hiked back up into the jungle. Man, this was hard for me. It was 100 degrees temperature. It was close to 100% humidity. It was muddy, and we're walking up this jungle like this. We found lots of stumps, mature stumps. We found not one mature tree. We saw some seedlings. Come on in. But we didn't see one mature rosewood tree. They had completely wiped them out. And in all our meetings with various government people and so forth, it became, and they actually explained to us how this stuff is hauled out of there. I immediately decided I would not use that Madagascar rosewood. I had enough sets that at retail, if we valued them in terms of what you'd pay for one of those guitars here, it was $500,000 worth of guitars. And I chose not to use it. That's how strongly I believe in what we're doing and how much confidence you can have that if you get a Bedell or a Breedlove guitar, you can feel terrific that you're making a difference on our world's forest when you use it. Do you have any questions about any of that before I move on to the next subject? Okay.
Take me on your next trip.
What?
Yeah, that's what I
Take
said.
me on your next trip.
Yeah, wouldn't it be fun?
I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'll go.
it's so fun.
John.
It's-
At the fear of getting you off into the weeds, I have one question.
okay.
What was the craziest thing that's ever happened to you on one of these trips?
So the question was, for the folks at home, what was the craziest thing that you saw happen to you on one of these trips where you were out harvesting or learning about?
Exploring.
Maybe circumstantial or just
So I'm in Suriname, the country that's at the north of South America. And there's a big, huge reservoir. Huge. I mean, I don't know what the size is, but it's like one of the Great Lakes, it's just a really big, much bigger than Table Rock Lake. They didn't cut any of the trees down. So they put up the dam and they flooded it. And it still has the trees. So the the mill that we work with there said they wanted to take us by boat back into the forest and show us where they have a concession to do some harvest. So we get in this boat, and it's one of those long wooden canoe type boats with a little engine on the back, and we get 2/3 of the way to where we're going, and the engine hits a log, and the engine goes out. Now, this is part of the Amazon River. We have piranha. Stick your hand in the water and then come up and say, "Well, I just lost my fingers," right? It's all kinds of weird stuff. The wind starts blowing. The canoe starts leaking. And I'm sitting there going, I'm going to die. Somehow, we saw a little island that we could actually, because we did have a couple of paddles, and we got the boat over there, and we slept that night on the island. They had cell phones, and so they could call and get another boat to come the next morning. We don't have any sleeping gear. We don't have, I mean, you know, I laid down like this on the sand, and there was critters around. And so we spent the night on that island. The next morning, the boat showed up, and we are switching out the engine and so forth and trading boats. And we start, again, trying to go to the forest, and we hit another stump. And there's a little village there, and we were able to call and get somebody to come out from the village. We traded boats, jumped in their boat. I'm sitting in the front, and we have a video of this. So I'm sitting in the front. My marketing guy, R.A., who's down there with me, is sitting right behind me. Then there's the guy running the boat, but in between him and R.A. is another guy with one of those plastic gallon juice bottles, bailing. Water is running in underneath my legs, back to the back of the boat. Well, he's trying to shovel the water out as fast as it's coming in. We finally get to the forest. We go do our thing, and it was legitimate, and everything was the way it was supposed to be. It was very gratifying. Grenadillo. We were buying Grenadillo, which is a... is Grenadillo d'Albergia? I think it is. I think it's an offshoot of rosewood.
That's what I've been told.
Yeah, it is a beautiful soundwood, and it sounds like rosewood. So everything was legitimate. So it wasn't a bad experience like Madagascar. It was a good experience in terms of the wood. We finally, in the dark, got back to where the road was to go back to the city at midnight that night. And R.A. got hypothermia, and it wasn't because it was so cold, it was because it was so scary. Yeah. We didn't think we were going to make it. Yeah. But it was a terrific trip.
Moral of the story is, do not ride in a boat with Tom Bedell. If you go through that many motors in one trip like that, I so love that we are authentic in what we do, that I know we're authentic, that I know we're protecting habitat for animals. I know we care about the indigenous people that are there. I know we're paying prices that give people that live there an incentive to be there. My goal in life is not ever at somebody else's life expense for me to save $1 or $2 or $3 or $10. I mean, why? We should be protecting all that life, and we do. Okay, can I go in another direction, and then I'll bring these together? Okay. What most companies, I'm only going to talk about acoustic companies, right? Certainly Martin and Taylor, the two biggest ones, but a lot of other ones too, went through a period in the kind of the 1990s, maybe even 1980s a bit, and 2000s, where lean manufacturing was the whole idea. There was a gentleman after World War II that went to Japan. His name is Deming. Have you guys heard of Edward Deming? And Deming's whole thing was that if you can cut out all the variability in a manufacturing process, your quality goes up. So if all the materials that you use are exactly the same,
if the environment that you build with is always exactly the same, if the machinery always does exactly the same thing, so you keep your saw blade sharp, or you keep your whatever it is, and if the person that's doing the work does it always exactly the same, you're always going to end up with the same quality product. And the car companies, Deming was a huge part of the car companies, and some of you are closer to my age than most of you. Remember when we used to go buy a Chevy or a Ford back in the 60s, and you just knew you were going to take it back in and they were going to repair the things you found that were wrong. That wasn't unusual. That was just the way it worked, right? And we weren't even upset with whatever the brand was, because we just expected that. The car companies would fix it and we'd have a good car. And then along comes Honda and Toyota and people that had listened to Deming, and all of a sudden you don't ever have to repair your car. And same with Chevy and Ford and stuff now too, because of following that quality. So some of the acoustic companies said, we're going to do Deming, we're going to do lean manufacturing, is the word that's used in America. We're going to put in CNC machines, we're going to use robots for buffing and finish, we're going to have all our parts made on automated equipment. And every guitar is going to be made the same. And several of those companies really advertised that we have such a sophisticated manufacturing system that we build every guitar to the same tolerances. Okay? What's the flaw in that?
Not all wood's made to the same tolerance.
Not one piece of wood's the same. All right? It's like your kids. Do you guys have kids?
Oh, yeah.
All right? And you're the same parents of both of them, right? Or all of them. And you have no idea how they all turned out so different. Right?
It was her fault.
See, ends up that was the wrong theory. He's got it. He knows exactly. He knows what I know. It was my wife's fault too.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later.
So it's not only that this Sitka tree grew here, and this was the surrounding neighborhood it had, and this Sitka tree grew over here, and this was the surrounding neighborhood it had. So they're obviously different. Yes? But within that Sitka tree that grew here, there's a 30% variance in density and frequency. So if I build a guitar with a Sitka top with the same dimension every time, I'm going to have a completely different feeling, sounding, and playing guitar on each one. And so then what happened? Some of the guitar companies actually advertised, go in a store, play 10 of them, find the one that you like. Because they know they're inconsistent, right?
Boy, that sure cost a lot of dealers a lot of money right there.
Yeah.
You had to stock 10 of the same model.
Right? Right? Or how could you order online a guitar you'd have no idea what you were going to get? Right? Okay, so what did we do? I figured out that the secret to being, we like to think, I'm not being very modest here, we like to think we're building the most consistent guitars in the world today. That if you wanted that exact same guitar, I'm going to go to the end and come back. If you wanted exactly that same guitar, and you call us, or you have them call us, and say, here's the serial number, we have 40 different measurements on that guitar that we track. We know exactly what the frequency of the top was before we carved it or milled it. We know exactly what the frequency is when we milled it. We know what the back frequency was, because there's a separation between the top and the back depending upon the body shape and the tone we're going for. We know there's a frequency separation that we want to reach. What am I talking about? May I borrow it?
Go ahead.
Okay.
It's not mine.
So listen to this. Now listen to this. Which one is higher?
Back sound.
I hear the back being higher.
The back's higher, right?
Higher.
Okay. So if it's the reverse, you've got a guitar that's going to sound like mush. So the back has a higher frequency, which means the back is a little bit more dense and a little bit more stiff than the soundboard, the top. Now, if I tap on that one, there'll be a different separation. This one has a lot of separation. I didn't bring the numbers down with me. They're actually in the case.
They are.
Yeah. I would guess this is a 40 hertz separation. But I don't know. I mean, we do know. I just don't know on this one.
Dave's going to now take that when he goes home, and he's going to test you, and then it will be reported on the internet, and you may have lost your job.
Get the case.
It's somewhere between 45 and 37. Okay. Well, because there's some other variabilities that we play with.
Sure.
Right? But we set a target for what we want that separation to be. Okay. Now, what happens? Because I'm taking this top and I'm milling it to a target thickness to reach a density, stiffness, and frequency. And then I'm taking this back and I'm pairing it with that top and I'm milling it to a specific dimension that I think is going to give me the frequency, the stiffness, the density. Right? So if it's a dreadnought, I need to be a little bit stiffer because you got a big space here. If it's a parlor, I need a little less because you don't have as much distance, right? So it isn't a cookie cutter formula. It's what kind of guitar am I trying to build? What's play style? Am I going to be finger picking or am I going to be bluegrassing? You want a different guitar. That guitar was not built to be a bluegrass guitar, although it sounds pretty good as one. But that's not what it was designed for. It was designed to play with your finger picks or fingers. Okay, so we start out with a target. Then these two pieces travel together from the very beginning in the build. We put braces on them, and we go in a room. They call it the sound optimization sauna. I don't know why. It must be hot in there.
No air conditioning.
Yeah, but
I'll tell you one thing. I love that the guy's like, I don't understand. It's his building, by the way. I just want to point that out. He should know why it's a sauna. Can't you afford air conditioning? What is the matter?
I think the air conditioning would affect the tonal properties of the room.
It's actually what I call it the hand voicing room, because we put the braces on the top, we put the braces on the back. Okay, now it depends upon what the guitar top is. We're more and more going to Adirondack bracing and to European bracing. Sitka has a lot of variability. And so the braces are not always consistent. European spruce is much more consistent. And if there's an Addy top, Addy bracing seems to really make a lot of sense to it.
Sure.
So we put the bracing on. Then we actually, but they're just two separate pieces of wood. They're not glued onto a body. These guys have seen all this, so
Yeah.
they can.
And we got some video too coming out, I believe, on some of this soon.
And so we hold it up. Well, actually, we put it in a frame so it looks like a guitar, and we tap it, and it tells us what its frequency is. And let's say that we want to lower the frequency by 6 hertz. We start, because your frequencies go down as you take weight away, and they go up as you add weight. You really can't add weight, so you have to start with a little above where you want to be. If you are already below where you want to be, you got to throw your top away because you're not going to just start sticking wood in there, right? And so if we start
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, it would be. We start chiseling away just with a little hand chisel and on the scallops, and we bring it right into where we think we want it. We do the same thing with the back. We put the guitar together, test it again. We then do all the kerfing and, all the binding, and we put the little decoration in here, and we put the rosette in here. Guess what that does? It adds weight, right? Then we go to finish, and we put finish all on it. What does finish do? Adds weight. Then we glue a bridge on. We just added some more weight. Then we put a strap button. You're saying, well, that's not wood, but guess what it does? It adds weight, right? Everything you do to that guitar is going to change the sound. Now, I would gander that there's not a person in here that can really tell the difference when you put the guitar strap button on. But technically,
I'm going to say there's going to be somebody on the internet right now that is talking about how that they can hear the difference. I'm here to tell you, I've been on that internet. I'm telling you, there's a guy right now that is typing about how much he can hear the difference.
I can tell you, I can't hear the difference. But we could measure the difference, when we tap on it and go into the FFT and measure the frequency. I don't know if it's strap button you're going to measure it, but certainly when you do the binding and the decoration, you can tell the difference. Okay, so this guitar is traveling through, and all these things and we're measuring everything we're doing, so we know how thick the finish is. We know we have 40 measurements when we get done. When the guitar is finished, we go in a room and we tap it. So what you do is you put it in a little rack here, and you tap right there. And it'll tell us what's called, you've probably all heard about this, the fundamental frequency of the guitar. This will tell you what the fundamental, so what fundamental means is, what's the first frequency? So when you have this chart, and it goes up like this and comes down, and then it goes up on the second mode and goes down, and goes up on the third mode and goes down. The first mode is called the fundamental frequency, and it tells you what your target would be. This guitar should be somewhere between 92 and 95. Oh, I'm going to get in so much trouble. I don't know what that card says. But it should be between 92 and 95.
We set him up.
Hertz as the fundamental frequency. Okay? That guitar should be about 108 to 110. Because it's a smaller body designed for a different sound. An orchestra would be in the middle. Does that make sense? Okay, let's say that we're at 99, and we're not getting the bass response out of this we want. We take that little finger chisel, we take the strings off, or we loosen them and pull them over, and we actually go in and we carve material off the braces. The guitar's done. This guitar, I don't know if we had to or not on this guitar, but I bet we did. We went in through the sound hole, and you can just watch those frequencies come into where you want them. You don't have to carve a lot. Now you're saying, Bedell, you don't do that on every guitar you make in Bend, Oregon. Yes, we do. 100% of the guitars we make have gone through all 40 of those measurements. And the last one is where we just bring it in, and it's so much fun. It's like, I know you women are going to just kill me for this one. But I'm like the dad that's in the delivery room waiting for the baby to come out. When this guitar gets into that room, I am in there saying, okay, let's play it. Let's test it. We need to take a few more hertz out. Now, Ian, the guy that's the technician at this that really does it, he knows exactly what he needs to do. But the amazing thing is you do hear it. He goes in and he scrapes a little bit and he brings maybe 2-3 hertz down on that top or on the back, and you just hear it come into its sweet spot. Let's say that you weren't getting enough bass, and all of a sudden, there's the bass. It's just fascinating what we can do. Now, why is this important besides the fact that we build great sounding guitars? If somebody wanted to buy exactly this guitar, we had this experience. We had a guy from LA that had bought a Bedell Bahia. The Bahia is a Brazilian rosewood back and an Adirondack top, a Honduran mahogany neck. He loved that guitar. He was part of a social group. He wasn't a great guitar player, but his life was kind of surrounded by people that loved to play music, and they loved his guitar and they wanted one. So he jumped on an airplane and flew up to Bend. He had his serial number, and we went into the Excel. Did we tell you this story?
I don't think so.
Okay, we went into the spreadsheet, found that guitar, found what all the readings were, and then we looked through the spreadsheet of all the Bahias that we had shipped. And we actually found one at a dealer in Texas that had a Bahia that was almost identical in terms of the final readings. And so we called the store in Texas and said, would you be willing to sell this gentleman the guitar? And he said, sure, that's what I'm in business for. So he ships it to him in LA. The guy calls me up and he says, I can't tell the difference between which guitar is mine and which one's the one the other guy bought. We can do that. And we can do it consistently. I had a friend of mine in Nashville. Lynn Goldsmith is a really famous rock and roll photographer that's done all kinds of coffee table books and all that kind of stuff. And her husband's Sid. And he envisions himself of being a great guitar player. And he's got Gibsons and Martins. And we'd become good friends because we used to live in Nashville. And he comes out and he wants to design a guitar, and he plays my Ocean Sinker Redwood Milagro Brazilian Parlor. And he's just fixated. But he wants a red cedar top and a Milagro Rosewood back Parlor. And he had some other things he wanted to change. But he goes, I want it to sound exactly like that guitar. And the woods are different, right? So because of what we do, I called the guys in. I said, can we do it? And he said, absolutely. And we completely duplicated, using different woods, the sound, because we knew what those numbers were. Okay, where does that lead me to? I've got a guitar here that's made out of cocobolo. Actually, they have a guitar here.
And you could have a guitar.
Yeah.
You could have a guitar.
Isn't that pretty? Okay. Cocobolo is part of the same species as rosewoods. So there's East Indian rosewood, Brazilian rosewood, well, all kinds of countries are rosewood. Because depending upon where it grows, they put the name in front of it, and it'll vary a little bit in terms of the characteristics because of the climate and the surrounding ecosystem and so forth, right? Cocobolo is in that same family. This grows in Central America. The difference between cocobolo and Brazilian rosewood is this is 20% denser. So in common language, you could say heavier, right? So now if you look at any other brands, including Breedlove pre-2015, you bought a cocobolo guitar because it was beautiful, but you didn't buy it because you wanted to play it. It was beautiful art on the wall. It was heavy. And it didn't create the beautiful sound. Why? Because people built to the dimension. So they took the dimension that they build all of their rosewood guitars, and they built a cocobolo guitar, and it would make a boat anchor. So people, including us, didn't know how to build with it. If you take, oh shucks, I haven't done this for 2 years. This, because of the pandemic, this is my first clinic I've done. So cocobolo is, I think it's got a specific gravity of 110. Does anybody here know?
All the internet warriors, get on your computers.
109, okay. It's above 100, which means that it actually sinks in water, because 100 is where it floats or sinks, right? Brazilian rosewood's 86. Okay, now, it varies depending upon the piece of wood, right?
By the way, we had somebody fact check you. You are correct.
I am correct?
Yeah. Keegan says you are correct.
Okay, good. So there's about a 20% difference in density between Brazilian rosewood. If you take mahogany, which gives you that beautiful kind of mid-range, right? Mahogany is, have your person correct me here, I think it's 56, specific gravity 56, in that range. The Wood Database will tell you.
Correct.
That's right?
0.59.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so if I'm going to build a guitar out of mahogany, what thickness do I want compared to building a guitar out of cocobolo?
Almost half.
Twice as thick, right? And we used to all just cut them the same, right? So I can cut this cocobolo half as thick as a standard mahogany guitar. If I do, it becomes incredible music wood. If I leave it that thick dimension, it becomes heavy, not comfortable to play, and it doesn't sound good. Right? So what does that mean? It means that Bedell and Breedlove have the ability to pretty much use whatever species of wood. Well, I got to be careful. If somebody wants a balsa wood guitar, I'm going to pass. That's not going to work. But if you take a variety of species of wood and you have a sound you want to target, we can say these are the frequencies that we have to be at to make that work. And for this species of wood, because we weigh it, we check the density, we check the stiffness, we check the frequency, and we adjust so that we're in the right zone. Does that make sense to y'all?
Is that why? As I do that.
It's okay to ask questions, but
Yes, please. Please, please.
so if you found a guitar and you said, I love the sound of this guitar, could you somehow obtain the measurements that you guys need to duplicate the sound of that guitar?
Yes. Yep.
If you didn't make it and you didn't have the measurements.
Okay, now my ego is going to come out. Oh, this is really going to be sounded bad. I don't know of a competitor that makes a guitar that I would want to duplicate. That's pretty strong to say. But if you take that Bedell Coffee House, which, what are you guys selling that for? $3,500?
We just got it in, so I don't know yet. It literally came yesterday.
Somewhere.
Yep, $34.90.
So
Still got it. $10 off of his discount, right, by the way.
that guitar is not because we sell a lot of $10,000, $8,000, $7,000 guitars. That's a $3,500 standard guitar. It's my best-selling Bedell guitar because of the price point. You put it against anybody else's guitar, and I promise you, if you do an A/B test, we're going to win every time. Every time. Because we've sound optimized to make sure that we do, right? So I'd have a hard time wanting to do that. But yes, we could. Long answer.
So this is where this comes in, correct? Where we start now using Myrtlewood.
This is magic. So when Breedlove was founded in 1990, Larry Breedlove and Steve Henderson first started the company. They had worked for Taylor. They moved up to Bend, Oregon, and they set up Breedlove. And then Larry's brother joined him 3 years later, and then Larry decided, or his wife decided, I don't know the order, that they wanted to live back in California. So Larry went back and worked at Taylor for the rest of his career, and Kim ran Breedlove. But Larry and Kim had grown up, well, they didn't grow up in Oregon, but they spent a lot of time looking for wood in Oregon. And they came across Myrtlewood, and they started building guitars with it. Have any of you ever heard of Myrtlewood before? Yep. It's not a common wood, and most brands don't use it. 50% of all the Breedlove guitars that we make are made with Myrtlewood. 50%. Why? It's a gnarly tree that grows in a kind of a 90-mile stretch along the Oregon Pacific coast. And for those of you that have been there on the Oregon coast, it is not like a California beach. It is cold, it's windy, it's rainy, it's a lot of cliffs.
Rocky,
yeah. It's when you think beach, you don't think Oregon. Okay, I like to think that a Myrtlewood tree basically lives its life pissed off because of the nature that it lives in, right? And so every piece of wood, is this the only one you have?
No, I got another beautiful one. I was just starting with the basic model right there.
Well, because I just want to show the difference. Every piece of Myrtlewood we get is different. Yeah. No, that's not Myrtlewood. That's Myrtlewood. Yep, it is. Okay, look at those.
I thought it was.
Yo, you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
I couldn't
you
see
make me
it.
second guess myself.
Nope. Yeah. See how every one of these looks completely different? Now, those have some finish on them, but you can still see the grain. That was gorgeous, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So is that.
Look at the front of that one too. That's also Myrtlewood on the front.
Yeah. Okay, so every piece of Myrtlewood looks completely different. And I think it's just that it couldn't grow a straight line if it had to, because of the life it has. So what's the result that we just happened to get out of Myrtlewood? It has complete, you know how when you come in here and the sales staff asks you, how do you play, what do you play, what do you want to sound like, what are you looking for? If you're looking for a guitar that's going to accompany you when you sing as a soloist, you might want a mahogany back and sides because it's got a little hump in the mid-range and it will complement your voice. Or if you have a strong voice and you don't want the guitar to be messing with your voice, you might want a rosewood because it's got a scoop. It's got the bass and the treble, but it's a little bit more shy in the mid-range. And so when you see on a stage an artist and they've got 4 or 5 guitars, that's because for this song, this is the dynamic they want, and for that song, this is the dynamic they want, right? Myrtlewood crosses those evenly. If you took this in a recording studio, the engineer that has to tune all the stuff to make it balance can go home. This has the highs of maple, it's got the lows of rosewood, and it's got the mid-range of mahogany. And so not only does it look spectacular and is it interesting, and each one's unique, so you have your own guitar, you don't just have the same looking guitar as everybody else, you actually get a balanced sound that we've never been able to get out of any other wood. So it's just fabulous. I don't know, what more should I say about it?
Let's play it.
I felt that was, a cool feel because, like you said, nobody else is using Myrtlewood, and with your guys' optimization, you're now getting a very powerful sounding guitar that absolutely sounds great. That you should grab that Oregon.
The price range, is it much more expensive, or is it?
No.
For which now? For like this price guitar right here, the one I'm holding right now. This is another cool thing. And, I don't want to interrupt because, again, Tom's just a wealth of all kinds of great knowledge. And every time I'm around him, he's got great things that he wants to say. But what we love about this is you have one of the strongest collections of tone woods of anybody. And we actually got to travel out there and see it. It's an amazing collection of tone woods of some of the highest caliber because he is so into actually getting out there and pick it. But here, this Myrtlewood right here, Oregon built, USA, gloss top, spruce top, myrtle back and sides. This one has a USA built guitar, $23.99. So this is not a crazy expensive guitar. This is in a concert size, and it plays great. That one is an anniversary one that came in. Absolutely gorgeous back and sides on that one with that spruce top. And that was actually introduced by John, who's here as our rep. He has one of these personally, and it was the first guitar I got to play as a USA Breedlove guitar was his, and he told me I couldn't have it. So that was how that ended up. By the way, Tom, he told me I couldn't have it. I just want you to know that.
Did you finally get it?
Well, I got another one for the store, but I wanted his.
We could have
for
called
me,
and
you
said
know.
And he wouldn't give it to
He
you.
wouldn't give it to me. So I just want you to point that out.
Now we know we could have called and said, match this frequency range.
But as far as a fabulous sounding guitar,
Yeah, let's hear some music.
it's a great sounding guitar in a small body that doesn't sound like a small body. Again, this is one of those things, and we have Matt here, who's one of the artists for you as well. He just came in. He's a Breedlove artist and plays more fingerstyle and that kind of stuff in here. This is what that guitar was designed for, but like you said, I play these with a flat pick. I am a little heavy-handed, and yet I can still make a great sounding guitar out of this. You know, it worked really well for me. So, you know how to play a tune, Jer?
What you were just doing.
know how to, what did you say?
Yeah, if you guys would play, listen, because you really, like what you just did, you can hear that. So it's interesting about tone. It's got a lot of dynamics. Let me share one more thing.
You go, man.
They'll hear it when you guys play. I'm going to use an old-fashioned person. You guys maybe know some younger people, but do you know who Celine Dion is? Okay. When you listen to her, a lot of times when she hits those high notes, she starts, I wish I could imitate her. She starts.
I want to see you try.
She starts perfect pitch with a very shrill sound, and then she breaks into vibrato. And you react, the hair goes up on your back of your neck, and you react to, wow. The shrill part sounds like an alarm clock. The vibrato part sounds like the finest bird singing you've ever heard and just absolutely gorgeous. And you just go, how does a human body produce?
By the way, Celine, if you're watching this, I never claimed you to be shrill. I just want to point that out. Ever. That was Tom's words.
He's using shrillness.
I got you. Yeah.
Okay, so when I first...
I'm sure she's watching too.
when I first started working on all this, really wanting to understand sound, I assumed that the best sound would be pure, hit that hertz note. So what's an A? Is it A 220 hertz?
A is 440.
Okay, and 220.
220, correct, as a lower octave.
Right.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Ha-ha!
I know.
Okay.
You go ahead and rub it in, and all you keyboard people, you go ahead too.
So I thought, man, we wanted to hit that 440 and we wanted to be right on it. You don't. You want to hit the 440, and then you want overtones to move you a little above it, a little below it, like Celine, because it's that it blossoms. And for a note to sound good to us, it's when it blossoms. Okay, so a guitar, a dreadnought, bluegrass guys, what do they want? They want that note to stop like that because they're on to the next one. Boom, 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 boom. It's like a percussion, right? So I don't want anything getting in my way because I'm playing two things. I'm playing notes and music, chords, and I'm playing rhythm. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're doing anything but strumming or a bluegrass, you want those notes to flower. Because when you're playing bluegrass, you don't really listen to the notes, you listen to the experience, right?
I don't know if I quite follow that.
No. When he's playing the mandolin, he's playing a melody. But what were you doing?
I know.
You were playing the curtain behind
Yeah,
it, right?
I'm with you, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I'm not trying to be negative.
No,
I
you're
love
not at all.
bluegrass.
I'm using you at your own expense, and
Yes.
it's fine. I mean, you can go ahead and insult my entire career. It's cool. We're all right with that.
He called Celine shrill, so take it. This is
Yeah, I'm good.
So before sound optimization, companies had to choose between quick dampening, so you had rhythm, you had a rhythm guitar, or longer moving so that you had the vibrato, the blossoming happen. And you chose. They were trade-offs. So if you wanted to get the blossoming sound, you didn't get the volume, the punch, and all that because it stopped some of the projection. You made the top actually a little bit softer so it would go a little bit longer and it would help those overtones to happen. So, excuse me, can I just, for a quick second?
You go right ahead.
So when
You break it, you buy it.
So when you strum this, can you hear it change? Okay, so there's a note here, there's a note here, there's a note here. So it goes through those three nodes, then it dances. Then it's got a note here, a note here. If it is dampened immediately, you might get through these three nodes, but you don't get the other stuff happening. And this all happens really quick, right? If you let it go and it's built right, did you hear how that changed? Right? So the longer that we can let the top ring and still get projection, which is by having the ideal frequency relationship between the top and the back. One other factor, then I'm going to let you play, okay? So one other factor that most people don't know. That top, when it's activated, what it's doing is it's releasing the energy here, and it's putting the energy in, and releasing it and putting it in, releasing it and putting it in. So that top is moving up and down, right? Okay, so when it pushes in, it's pushing the air against the back and out the sound hole. When it's moving out, guess where it's pushing the air? Into the room. So I don't know if I'm perverted or if you guys all do the same thing. I love to go in the shower and sing if my wife's not home. And it bounces off the tiles. And I hear it and I go,
Celine Dion, by the way.
I sound pretty good. And then I get out in the regular room and I sound like baloney. So what's happening? If you take a guitar into the man cave of your house and you sit there in a small room, the room becomes part of the music that you're creating, because half of the action of this guitar is being pushed into the room and half of it's being pushed into the guitar. Right? Does that make sense, the energy? Mm-hmm. So one of the questions that I ask, if somebody says, Tom, I want a parlor, I'm going to play it in my man cave. How big's your man cave? What are the walls made out of? Do you have carpet on the floor or do you have wood? And they say, what are you talking about? You're getting awful personal. And I said, well, that will affect how your guitar sounds, where you play it. So you may have a guitar that you play in your man cave and it sounds fantastic. Me in the shower. Then you go up on a stage or in an amphitheater and you play it and nobody can hear it, right? Because you're not getting that same sound. So there's several different things that go into getting you the guitar that you want. And you're sitting here and saying to me, what are you talking about? And what I'm talking about is, in a small space, we can duplicate projection and we can duplicate blossoming on the same guitar. We've learned how to do that. You lose some of that blossoming when you get into a great big space. It's just the nature of the room. Okay,
Makes sense to me.
let's hear some music.
What do you want to play?
Gold Rush?
Sure. Do you want to do it first?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Hear the balance between the highs and lows?
There we go.
That was a perfect demonstration, because balance is what our ear hears. What this guitar is doing and what our ear hears are two different things, because we're a human being and we have filters and we process it, right? And so the volume of the bass, the volume of the treble, and the volume of the middle, not only are they in balance tonally, they're in balance in volume. And so you couldn't, I don't know how you felt. Me listening, I didn't go, man, that bass isn't coming out very well. They were all the same, right? It's hard to achieve that. And most guitars, you'll say, oh, it's really bright. You know, maple, that'd be maple was real popular for a while. I don't know why it's not now.
Still looks pretty. It's a lot bright.
Yeah.
Like, for most people, it's really brittle.
Yeah.
It's on my most mandolins, so
Yeah,
I
exactly.
still got it.
And a lot of people that record the studios like maple because bass creates havoc with them on their recording equipment because, you know, the bass wave is longer, the higher waves are sharper. It just affects the recording equipment different. So you'll hear people say, don't bring a Brazilian guitar in here. Please bring a maple guitar in because we can add the bass, but we can't, you know, I don't know. That guitar, a recording studio would love. That one too. Yeah. Okay, how much longer do you want to go?
We can go a little bit longer. It's going to talk about your parlor that is actually behind you. That's a really cool one.
You said you were going to mention also why you have such a collection of woods that a lot of manufacturers can't use for building guitars.
Because they don't know how.
Okay. Short answer, I like it.
We have sets of 5,000-year-old kauri that was discovered in New Zealand before the Ice Age. And the Ice Age came and covered it up, and these trees were buried in a bog. And I don't know, some years back, somebody came in and wanted to do a development, and they were digging up the ground to whatever. And they found these big old kauri trees that were carbon dated to 50,000 years old. So that's an example of a very exotic wood that's fun. We have some wood sets, we're almost out of them now. It's called Ancient Sitka. There was a tree up in Alaska that 3,000 years ago has been carbon dated. I think I'm wrong. I think it was 2,989 years or something.
There you go.
Right,
Take
like
that, keyboard warriors.
Yeah. So it actually got buried in an avalanche and was underground for those 3,000 years, so oxygen didn't get at it. And our wood supplier, this is a total fluke, but things like this happen all the time. It's really fun. Our wood supplier wanted to expand his mill, and so he had a backhoe out there, and they were digging the side of the mountain out so they could move their building back, and it hit something hard. And he dug it up, and it was this old Sitka tree. And he said, I wonder what the wood's like. And he cut into it, and the first second when he cut into it, it looked like regular Sitka. And the minute oxygen hit it, it turned a beautiful kind of a gray blue. It oxidized? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, I think that's the word.
Yeah. As it turns out, it had for 3,000 years been absorbing minerals. You know, wood is, oh gosh, there's so much fascinating stuff. When you see all these little growth lines, in between the growth lines is a kind of a soft fiber. And it's like a straw. And it sucks water. So the growth line is a solid, it doesn't move. The stuff in the middle of it, in between the growth lines, is where all the water absorbs and all the activity happens in a tree. When you're buried or you're sunken, you know, you hear about sunken cedar, sunken redwood, floating in the ocean, floating in a lake, whatever, then minerals come with that water up into that. So that's what that is. Those are minerals that have been absorbed. And what minerals do, some people will say, well, so why is this sunken cedar here. Why is a sunken cedar sound different than a regular cedar? It's because it's stiffer, because it's got that mineral deposit in there, right? So what we have to do is make sure that we get all the water out of this before we build with it. So we take our wood down to about a 6% moisture content. Now, you hear about cracking guitars, just a little bit of trivia. So a guitar can expand with humidity this way on the top because you can fill up those spaces and expand it. It can't expand this way because there's no way for it to absorb the wood. Interestingly enough, the wood on the sides is put in exactly the opposite way. And then the wood on the back is put in the same as the way on the top. So what happens when you change moisture? This is expanding if you add more moisture. What's it pushing against? The side. Here, if it's expanding, it's pushing against both the, because sometimes they'll crack here because they're expanding, or usually a crack is because it's too dry, meaning it's contracting, but it's hooked here and it's hooked here, and if it's contracting,
Something's got to give.
something's got to give. Exactly, right? So a lot of people don't understand why is humidity such a big issue. I'm rambling, but let me ramble some more. I'm having fun.
He's having fun now.
It's been 2 years.
So what happens when you build a guitar? So we're in our workshop. We're at 70 degrees, perfect. We're at 45% humidity in Bend, perfect. We take all the woods, and they're all conditioned, perfect. Other guitar factories do the same thing.
Should be.
They better be, yeah. And most of them do. Okay, but these are just pieces of wood. Okay, now, if you're a cedar tree, which this would have been, and cedar can live for several hundred years, and let's say that because of the environment you're around, you grew like this, right? You see very few trees that are just 100% straight. Okay. Do you think there's some stress? If you had to stand like this for 250 years, right?
Just 1 minute.
Okay, so then you cut that tree down. Think of all the stress that's pushing down on it and that's trying to, okay, you fell that tree, and in most cases, the log explodes. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever gone in your backyard to cut down a tree and it falls and boom, it blows up? Well, that's all that stress is just being released. That's why you need a professional sawyer to fell a tree that really knows how to do it in a way that will allow that stress to be released as you're starting to cut it, so that it doesn't all just boom and blow up. Then you cut the tree into cylinders. So let's take a log that's laying on the ground, and you cut a chunk, and you cut a chunk, and you cut a chunk. So you have this big round. And then what quarter saw means, which is where good guitars are built, is you go from the outside where the bark is straight into the center like a pie. And then you cut your next piece like that. And then you just keep going around. Now you end up with some waste when you do that, because you want to be as straight from the outside to the inside. So then you cut a chunk for a mandolin out to get back to your straight. Because a mandolin is built out of
The junk. I know that. I know that's what you're trying to say. The junk that was left over.
The leftovers. We get.
You're welcome. I'll be here all night.
So that's what quarter saw means, right? What flat saw means is you just take the log and you just start cutting up and down it, and then you're going across all those grain lines. So when you walk into a home and you see a wood floor and it's got all that interesting kind of figure to it, that's all flat sawn, because they just went and cut strips out of the whole log. But for a guitar, you've got to come at it from the outside to the middle. Okay? When you cut those, you're releasing stress. So there's all this stress. So I'm starting out here, I'm getting felled, I'm getting cut into circles, I'm getting cut into pieces, and then I'm getting glued into some other woods. Well, that's a completely different wood than this is on the side and the back. So this is going to absorb humidity and temperature differently than this is. So you change humidity, and this is not a guitar when we first build it. It's a bunch of pieces of wood that we glued together that have to get used to each other. So what happens over time? The cellulose fiber that's in between these growth lines breaks down. So that as there's, you know how people talk about, hey, if I put my guitar in front of a great big speaker and just set it there and let the music play through it, it'll sound better quicker? Or there's that tone, you've got one back here.
There, yeah, the Tone Traveler.
Traveler that you put on the bridge, and it's making the guitar do this. What's it doing? It's getting the cellulose fibers to break down, but they don't break down evenly. So when somebody says the more you play your guitar and the kind of music that you play, the more the guitar will break into sounding for you. Why is that? Because as you're playing, different stress points are happening on the top and on the back, and that's where the cellulose is breaking down. And so the guitar grows into your music and it grows into you over time. That's not a phony, when people say that and you say, nah. A guitar that's been played a lot, if it's been really well taken care of, will sound terrific on your music because it broke into your music. Now, I might pick it up and play completely differently and not have that same result.
Or I'll play it and it definitely won't have any good result.
Yeah.
That's how I do it.
Yeah. So that's just a little bit more about kind of what the whole guitar experience. Does that make sense to y'all?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. You want some more music?
So, well, I was going to say, one of the things that I wanted to touch on about Breedlove and Bedell guitars, we talked about it a little bit before, is the collection of woods that you have been able to source. Because you are so in touch with what is there, you have woods that other manufacturers aren't getting, and collection of it that aren't there. We talked a little bit about Brazilian. I want to get back to that one. But this was an example that I saw. We just got this one in. It's a Koa back and sides. Koa, a lot of people are building with Koa. It's absolutely gorgeous. You know that. You've actually got stories of like the Pele guitar, which was it right? It's called the Pele.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had one of those. And in fact, I'm surprised they're not here tonight to talk about that. But stories to go along with those woods. But here's what I think is the coolest part, and I do want to get back to the Brazilian collection as well, is this is a guitar that has gorgeous Koa, wood binding, has an Adirondack top. This has all the purfling with the abalone all the way around it. Beautiful, rosette, the whole deal with a LR Baggs Anthem already installed. Sounds fabulous, does have a sound optimization, all that kind of stuff. But here's where I think it really shows off what Bedell and Breedlove both are. For Koa of this level from the top brands that everybody talks about, or even some of the non-top brands that are building boutique guitars. We're usually talking $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 instruments here. And I think this is something that needs to be touched on heavily with your brand, is that you got affordable. And that brings us to Brazilian. And you can tell the story of how you got this collection of Brazilian. You have one of the largest collections of Brazilian usable, papered, legal Brazilian. You can take it anywhere in the world, which is, again,
with a permit.
With a permit.
Yeah.
Which is something that a lot of manufacturers cannot claim. I've got guitars that I have in here right now for sale that I know for a fact you could not do that with. Even though they are legal, they're not as legal as what you have.
They don't have the proof behind them.
They don't have the proof. They don't have the the size paperwork and stuff that all yours has. But more than that, a Bahia guitar, remind me, price point of a Bahia, do you remember?
$5,000.
Right about $5,000. Okay, there you go. So $5,000 guitar, Dreadnought with an Adirondack spruce top.
Next year it's going to be $6,500. So if you want one, you want to buy it right now.
Buy it right now? All
yeah.
right. Well, thanks for letting me know. But again, I'm going to tell you a story. I went to one of another big competitor that builds we were doing a major trade show, and I brought one of the Bahias to it. And I came over and looked at it, and this is a fairly well-known builder. I'll tell you who it is. It was Hudson Dalton was over there, and they looked at it, and they grabbed this guitar, and he pulled it down and looked at it, and then I looked at the price, and I told him, I said, you got to look at the price, because that's a big deal. And he didn't understand this, because he told me, he said, if I was to buy that wood set, I'd have almost $5,000 in it to buy that wood set before we built anything, before we did anything. And that's about right. Your guitar put a Brazilian rosewood Dreadnought together for $5,000 roughly dollars, and you could, with an Adirondack spruce top that was sound optimized, has all the paperwork, has all that kind of stuff. How are you able to do so? Do you want to tell us your secret to being able to do that?
I'm a hippie, and I don't care about making any money, and I just want to give you guys a great deal.
All right, okay.
He wants to be in the baby delivery room more often. He's selling guitars.
Here's the down and dirty Brazilian story. In 1967, the Brazilian government passed a law that you could not export Brazilian logs anywhere, Brazilian rosewood logs. The reason made a lot of sense. They wanted to add labor in Brazil rather than just shipping their trees off. They wanted at least people to make some money processing the logs. Just a vignette off that that's kind of fun. So Chris Martin's, was it his father or grandfather? Which one was the really cheap one?
I don't know.
I think it was his grandfather. Anyway, Chris loves to tell the story.
Which is Chris.
Yeah. No, Chris is terrific.
No, just kidding.
But I think it was his grandfather. Anyway, so they were building, if you buy a D28 or a D45, it was made with Brazilian rosewood up through 1969. They changed in 1969 because in 67, Brazil had said you can't import logs, you have to have them processed. Well, the way they processed them was flat saw. So his company could not get the yield out of these flat sawn lumber that they were getting out of the logs that they had imported. And so their costs were going way up. And so he switched from Brazilian rosewood to East Indian rosewood. So from 1969, somewhere in that year, and if you call them or just, there's charts on the internet, serial number that'll show you exactly when they changed from I have a 1969 D28 that was made with Brazilian. It was one of the last ones, actually. So that was the start of the change in the Brazilian story. Then in 1972, some of the nations around the world started an organization called CITES, and the purpose of CITES was to protect endangered species, animals, plants, and to have it not just be by country, because certainly we have an Endangered Species Act, right? But this was for the whole world to come together and say, what are our species that we as a world community need to make sure and protect? And a perfect example that you're all very familiar with is elephant tusks. That the use of ivory is the reason that so many elephants were being killed, still are. And so the whole world gathered together, and basically now it is illegal to sell anything made of ivory. Not even just for export, but in the United States, if your great-grandparents gave you a beautiful artifact made out of ivory, you can have it in your house, but it's illegal for you to sell it to somebody else. And that's true all around the world, right? To try to protect the elephants. Brazilian rosewood in 1992 was declared endangered the same as ivory. And so it became illegal to trade in Brazilian rosewood. They did not go the step that said that you can't sell it within your country. The enforcement on CITES is across borders. So you can't take a Brazilian rosewood guitar outside of the country. They have not yet, and I don't know if they're going to or not, they have not yet outlawed, if you own a Brazilian guitar in the United States, selling it to somebody else in the United States, that's perfectly fine. Whereas with ivory, you can't, even though it's in the same classification in CITES. I don't think they're going to go that extra step. But you can't take it outside of the country. You can't resell it. You can't import it. You can't ship it after 1992. Well, there's a company in Spain named Medinter, and the dad was in the church ornament business in Europe. So these beautiful cathedrals, you know, if you've been to Europe or you've seen movies and stuff, the doors might have been made out of Brazilian rosewood. The artifacts up on the, what do you call it?
The altar.
The altar, yeah, are made out of special exotic woods. And that's what this company did. Well, the old man dies, the son takes over, and he wants to go into the musical instrument tonewood business, right? They had logs, Brazilian rosewood logs, that the father had brought from Brazil pre-1967. They had the invoicing and the paperwork, they'd stored it. So they had proof that this had been shipped from Brazil to Spain pre the law that outlawed that. And then obviously they had that wood pre-1992, right? Well, Spain then put in a regulation that you could not ship even if you had it before 1992, you could not ship it anywhere until the authorities had come through, checked your paperwork, inspected your wood, and confirmed that it was pre-1992, and then they would give you a certificate that would say, this was before CITES made it endangered, and you can sell it. That happened in 2012. I learned about it, and in 2013, I flew to Madrid, Spain, and I offered to buy their entire collection of Brazilian rosewood, enough to make several thousand guitars. To my knowledge, nobody has. There were some people who had bought some Brazilian rosewood from a dinter and had that same paperwork. You know, they might have bought 50 cents or 100 cents. I bought it all. And so I have what you guys saw, I've got a warehouse room that's full of Brazilian rosewood. It was about $3 million worth of wood at cost. It'll probably make, I don't know, I've never figured it out, but probably $6, $7, $8 million worth of guitars. I don't know what it is. I'm making it up, so don't.
He didn't want to make money anyway, so
yeah. So then we registered it all with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And when you come here to the Acoustic Shop and you buy one of our Brazilian guitars, there will be a little green binder, and inside it will be all the paperwork that goes with that guitar.
It's true.
So you have it. Then if you want to take it to Europe or Africa or wherever you want to take it, or if you want to resell it outside of the country, then you give us a call, or have these guys give us a call, whatever you want to do, and we'll walk you through how you apply to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for a permit. And they know all of our wood. They've got all the list, all the inventory. We update the reports every quarter. And they will issue a permit. And then when you travel into that country, you go to the customs and you have them stamp this form, and that actually says this was legally brought into Germany, for example. Germany is one of the toughest countries. And I did it. When we first set this up, I said, all right, I got to experience this. So I had a really beautiful Brazilian rosewood Bedell. I applied for the permit, got the permit, flew to Germany, went to customs, got it stamped. Then I traveled through Europe, and I left, I think, from Spain to come back to the States. So I didn't, because Europe's a European community, I didn't have to do anything inside Europe. Then in Spain, I had to get it stamped that I was leaving the country with it. Then I landed in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to customs and had it stamped that I got back. So I had the whole route that I took, right? No problems, none. Now what they've done, because the paperwork got so complicated for the Fish and Wildlife Service and the customs in the other countries, and orchestras were having a really hard time because there were, there's a lot of rosewood in different orchestra instruments. And so they passed an exemption for orchestras that if you want to pack all your instruments up and ship them, you can't go through all these steps with the guitar that's in with all the other things. And so you can actually get an orchestra permit that just kind of smooths all that through. So they've really made it doable. But if you don't have that paperwork and you take it out of the country, they can confiscate it and you'll never see it again, and you won't get any money for it.
There are a lot of stories of that actually happening too.
Yeah.
I know that there are musicians who have lost Brazilian rosewood instruments, and it's what it is.
And we have 5 different classifications of rosewood. The best Brazilian rosewood tonally that we have is from a tree called Milagro. It was carbon dated to over 500 years old. It must have grown up. Now, I'm making this story up now. I wasn't around 500 years ago, okay? So I'll tell you where it's based, but we think it must have grown on the side of a hill in the Bahia province, and it must have been deprived of some water. So it wasn't in a bog, or it wasn't in where there was a lot of water. Why do we think that? There's rebar. So what happens when a tree is under stress? You've got the normal growth lines, But then when it gets under a lot of stress, a tree, some species of trees, have the ability to grow cross-grain lines. And that's where you get that really beautiful figure. We probably got some here that have it.
Are you talking about figured
See,
rosewood?
that one doesn't.
That's this right here.
See, that's pretty straight. Yeah.
No, this.
Okay, so how did all that happen? That was probably under a lot of stress.
That's like my back.
Actually, I know where this came from. This came from India, and it's at the bottom of the tree. That was a plantation. I can tell you the story of this one.
Dave's gonna like it because he's here. He actually, the guy who owns this guitar is sitting back
Okay.
there.
What happened when the British basically took over India? They did a lot of coffee plantations, but it is so hot in India that they planted rosewood trees to provide some shade. And that was enough hundreds of years ago that the trees became mature. And India is the best country on rosewood wood management. They really do it right. I've been there, I've been to the auctions. You cannot sell a rosewood tree in India as a person. You have to give it to the government. The government takes a 20% commission, and they hold periodic auctions where they lay out all the logs in a huge field. And if I'm a wood buyer, I get the information, but then I can go and look at the trees in the field, etc. And then at a certain time, I'm going to make it up, but let's say 5 o'clock that afternoon, I put my bid in. So I bid on log number 564, and I bid $5,000. Now, the sealed bid, somebody might bid $4,000, somebody might bid $5,500, and I either get it or I don't get it.
I learned from Price is Right, you always add one more dollar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
always.
yeah.
Or
right?
you just say $1.
Yeah. And then the government takes its 20% for managing all that and returns you the money that the log got, right? So they did that with these, as these rosewood trees got old. This story's going on too long. I'll end it here pretty quick. But they kept the stumps like that. So we went back and said, we'd like some of the wood that is still left there because all that weight, that's all stress, right? Some people call it stump wood. Now, it's not real stump wood because it's not really the down in the stump, but it's the last bit here, but it's where all that weight and pressure, and it's kind of like it's like a rebarb kind of a thing that happens. So that's where you get a lot of figure. It's where you get more density.
There you go. So the same thing idea with Brazilian, which is where you were coming from. You have some that is more figured. Correct?
Yeah, this Milagro wood, man, it's Mother Nature's mystery.
It's beautiful. I've seen it. In fact, we've got, I think, a couple of guitars that will be being built, which kind of, I guess, brings us to our another thing that we want to talk about is, again, the custom shop stuff, the stuff we're doing here at the Acoustic Shoppe with Breedlove and Bedell. We actually got to go out there. Tom invited us out there in October. We were going through woods. We talked with the team about various different things. I know there's some kind of surprises that are going to be coming into the future that I may have talked Tom into very heavily. I was pretty brutal, wasn't I?
Arm twisting.
Do you want me to announce it?
Are we at that point where we can?
January 1, every Bedell dreadnought will be a straight shoulder dreadnought.
Okay. So I went and I really, really pushed.
He was not very nice.
I was not very nice.
He'd had a glass of wine.
I love the slope shoulder guitars that they built, and they built some great guitars. Don't get me wrong, and you know, all these are great sounding guitars. But we talked about and you kind of agreed with me is you have Bedell or Breedlove guitars, which are more modern style guitars.
Innovative,
and
yeah.
That is what they do. It is modern, innovative body shapes, styles, tone woods, all that kind of stuff. Where the Bedell stuff is your name stuff, which is a little bit more harkened to the traditional aspects of how guitar have been built. Obviously with new technology, new things, and with the tone wood collection that you have that, you know, is there. So I kind of push real hard that dreadnoughts are kind of known, the majority of them for squared shoulder dreadnoughts. Absolutely fabulous, and that's kind of what I tend to like I love the sound of slope shoulders, but when I lean on the traditional builds, I kind of prefer the square shoulders. So anyway, we pushed for some of those, and now it sounds like we will officially be seeing those.
We're tooling it up right now.
Good.
So,
I'm going to be back then to check out mine. That said, we also have some specific sets that we got to actually show, some Brazilian sets. One of them I think I held for myself. Does that mean I get comped this guitar because I pushed you for the square shoulder, the one that I'm wanting to pick out?
If you're willing to pay for the tooling.
Good answer.
Wow. All right, cool. Anyway,
The guitar comes free with the tooling.
The cool thing is, it truly is, you can come to talk with us. We can actually do some things with that team, including picking specific pieces of wood, even if we're not there. We did some where me and Jeremy actually went through, and there's going to be coming down the pipe soon in the whole lineup. But we can actually do this with your wood team out there to be able to pick out woods. They send actual pictures back and forth. We can actually do that. And then we can talk about sound optimization. Like you said, we can lean on a heavy flat picker style. If you want more of a finger picker style, we can do all that kind of stuff in Custom Shop. And that's one of the other things that I love about our relationship with both those two brands. So again,
Let me carry it a step farther. If you want to come into the shop and anybody working here, you can get on the phone with me. You can get on the phone with a couple of our other designers, and we can walk through what exactly do you. I spent an hour with a gentleman on the phone, and then he paid for it. Then I gave him his money back as a credit on the guitar he bought because he bought it. I think it was a $12,000 guitar. I actually sent him 3 guitars. Well, I'd send you, not him, but sent 3 guitars out for him to A/B and then pay the freight to ship them back to us because he had some questions like, do I want a 1 3/4 inch neck or do I want a 1 11/16 inch neck? I'd like to wrap my thumb around which one's going to be the easiest to do it. Now, they've got all those here, so you don't need to have me send them. He was in a place where there wasn't a Bedell dealer right then. I can send you something that if you wanted to try it out, but they'll have them here, so you don't need to. But we can talk about this and really help design the guitar. These guys know a ton, but if you also want us to. And then we have a gal named Brittany who goes into the wood stacks and pulls out woods, and she loves to send pictures. And so...
And that alone's a pretty awesome experience. The wood looks gorgeous as it is, but then they have a little alcohol you put on it. And it just brings out those grains the way they're going to look once it's finished. It's almost magical when that's kind of wiped on there, and it just makes that wood pop. See the colors.
Now I can tell you from experience, and after all this talk about we care about sound, we care about shape, at the end of the day, 90% of people buy a guitar because of the way it looks. So you look at that back and you say, holy cow, and you want it to sound good, right? Because it's so beautiful. So thank goodness they do sound good.
Yeah, you're right.
But a lot of it is you really want to get something that you're proud of, that every time you pick it up, you just go, wow, right? And then when you strum it, you go, wow again. And when you feel it, and you feel how comfortable it is to play, and you go, wow again. That's our goal. So if you look at what do we want our Breedlove brand to stand for, we have 4 unique body shapes. We didn't just automatically copy the tradition of Martin and everybody else that's followed with a dread. Do they call it an orchestra or do they call it something else?
I think they do call it an orchestra.
Yeah, I think Taylor calls it a concert, and
they call it grand auditorium.
Yeah, and Martin calls it a orchestra in a parlor. So a lot of companies just copy those body shapes, right? And you say, I want a dread, I want this, I want that. We actually, using sound optimization, went in and said, we want a big body guitar that will sound bigger than a dreadnought, but will give you the blooming notes. And I'm not here in any way to disparage the competition. That people build terrific guitars. And guitars and music and sound are like wine. We all have our own little nuances that we like. And most of you probably own 3 or 4 different brands of guitars, and we think that's terrific. So I'm not in any way wanting to get into a comparison piece, but we wanted a big body guitar that had that big body sound that still bloomed, and we named that the Concerto. And it's got a body air volume, body chamber, that's bigger than a standard dreadnought, but it's got the curve. Do you have a Concerto here?
This is it. Both of the ones that we're holding.
Yeah,
Concertos.
that's a Concerto. So it looks like a guitar. It's not a square rectangle. It's way more comfortable sitting on your knee. But this is 5 inches, whereas a standard dreadnought would be 4. And it's a little bit broader here and narrower here. But there's a brace that goes right across here on most guitar builds. And that's for integrity for the fretboard and the body. So there's no sound here. Most people say, well, the cutaway, does that really affect the sound? There's no sound there anyway. It's all here, right? So the volume from here to here and here to here and here to here is what decides the sound, right? So this was a brand new body shape. Then our concert, Breedlove Concert, is the original Breedlove from back in 1990.
That's one we had. I'll grab one.
Yep, and that's by far, we sell over half of all our guitars are a concert shape. It's the most popular Breedlove. And it's just an all-around, it's comfortable to play. It sounds absolutely terrific. But and it doesn't have quite as deep a, is that a Concerto?
Oh, I grabbed the wrong one. I apologize.
That looks like a Concerto.
It is. That was me. Here, go back to this one.
Yeah, so let's compare them. Okay, can you see the difference? But they still are the same shape, aren't they? Right? So this was really popular because it's comfortable, it's versatile. So we just made this one a little bit bigger. And then we came out with a little sweetheart called the Concertina, which is, and when you get one in, you'll have it sold the next day. It's amazing. And it's the equivalent of a parlor, but it's taking the concert and just taking all the same shape and making it smaller.
I guess this is Discovery Concertina.
Okay, because we make it into cutaway too.
Yeah.
But you can see how much smaller it is, but it's still the same shape. And we scientifically designed the air chamber to maximize projection and blossoming sound. Now, the interesting thing is each one of the sound holes of these 3 guitars are different sizes. And you say, why is that? Well, here I need to. Okay.
Or 2.
So the size of the sound hole affects the fundamental frequency. And so when we were designing the size of the air chamber, and then we knew our target fundamental frequency, if we needed it to be a little bit higher or a little bit lower, merely by changing the size of the sound hole, it would adjust the fundamental frequency. And so some people will say, most companies actually are saying out loud, the sound hole size doesn't matter. The sound hole size totally matters. It really changes it. If we made these all the same, we wouldn't have the exceptional sound that we're getting out of the Concertina and the Concerto. So it's just another little effort we make to perfect the performance of our instruments. Now, Bedell is different. I grew up, I'm old, I'm sorry. I'm happy you're old and not here. But I grew up in the 60s, playing guitar in a band. There's a sound. And I like to think that a lot of that 1960s, late 50s folk, and a lot of the 60s sound is the basis of the music that we all listen to today. That's what we grew up with. It's kind of the sound that's there. And so when I was designing my Bedell guitars to build in the US, that's the sound that I hear. So we've got this little mahogany here. I call that my Bob Dylan guitar. And as we were building it, every step of the way, I wanted to hear Bob Dylan when we played it. And we did, I think. I think we accomplished it, right? That coffee house is not a Bob Dylan guitar, it's a Crosby, Stills and Nash guitar. And that's what I wanted it to sound like. And I think we got there, right? So Bedell Guitars is all about me just having a ball.
What does that parlor guitar sound like?
Amazing. I gotta play that one because I know this guitar.
It doesn't sound like any 1960s guitar.
This guitar is fantastic. And again, figured Indian rosewood on the back. By the way, same guy owns this that owns that one over there. He's a smart buyer.
Oh, that's not.
No. But I got another one of these coming, and I even have a
I think we have the woods to build some more of those.
Oh, I think there's one. I know I picked out a set of figured Indian rosewood for one of these that is incredible. I actually got to hand pick it out. It is also gorgeous like this.
Look at that smiley face. Look at that.
Yeah,
Two
this one's
eyes
got a
and
big smile.
Yeah, yeah.
Gorgeous guitar. Like
happy
you said,
guitar.
has the sunken cedar on it, and we actually picked out a cedar top as well for the one that will be coming here. And there's even a figured Indian rosewood. This will be kind of a unique guitar for those who are watching, and if you want to lay claim to it before it shows up, you can do that. We've got a process to be able to do that. But I've got a figured Indian rosewood coffee house coming in a natural top as well, which is going to be a really cool custom guitar. There's a lot of really cool custom guitars that are on their way, but parlors. This is something we do need to talk about because the parlor guitars from you guys are different. And I mistakenly, when I started out, I was always comparing them to a 00. It is not the same as a 00. This has more depth.
Look at what we did was we exaggerated the lower bout to get way more sound out of it.
And that was all for me. You know, I always wanted a bigger. Now that's with fingers. Obviously, I'm not getting as much power as I would with a pick. I guess I can do that. I'll grab mine, because this guitar will do that. It's a big sounding guitar. It's very sweet. It's very rounded, yet it has really cool highs, especially for a cedar top. Very unique, very comfortable, and beautiful looking as well. So I've got, you would talk about some of that beautiful Brazilian. There's also a custom Brazilian coming of one of these parlors that is going to be incredible. We've got some sunken Sitka that was, or was it, what was the deal with the blue Sitka? Do you remember that?
Ancient Sitka?
No, it's not the ancient Sitka. It was ones that had blue streaks in it from, it was salvaged from, gosh, I can't
Was
remember.
that a bridge one?
Yeah, it was from a boat or a houseboat or a bridge or something, and took on some blue iron content. And it has like blue streaks in it. I know we did something with that. I'll find the story on that one too, because I know we went through some really cool pieces for that. But there'll be a gorgeous Brazilian coming, also a firehouse parlor. And then later this year, you've got the Koa fireside parlor that's coming out.
Yep.
And I actually got to pick out our specific set for that Koa, and again, it's pretty darn nice. So.
Okay, so let me describe what our goal was here, and then you're going to hear John play it, and hopefully you hear it. This is not designed to sound like a bluegrass guitar. This is designed to sound really warm, to almost surround you with warmth. And so we want the highs to be ever present, but we don't want them to stand out. We don't want you to say, oh, that's really bright. We want you to say it's really warm. It's hard to know what words to use. And we want enough bass that you can do some people, use the bottom two bass strings. You guys probably play that way a lot, right? So we want that bass to do its job, but we don't want the highs to take away from the warmth that comes. And that was the goal with these woods.
So I went ahead and quickly tuned it down to Dagad because I figure that I find that what this guitar always does really well with. So.
has something. Now,
For a very small guitar, that is a very powerful. And by the way, I remember when Dave purchased this guitar, it didn't take you, what, like 20 minutes to decide you had to take it home? Yeah, not even that long.
so you can picture a performing artist up on a stage, and the guitars are lined up. And there's a kind of sound you can hear when you hear this. When I heard that, there were some songs that just popped right into my head, right? Because that's the background that goes with the music. And that's the art of saying what, well, I'm just trying to sell you guys 2 or 3 guitars. That's,
I do want to mention, I know Tom's been super generous for coming here tonight, and we ran across Tom at NAMM show one year. We were going actually to the Weber booth to talk about mandolins, and then I said, have you checked out Bedell guitars? And we're like, well, we're not familiar with them, but so let me get Tom over here and he'll explain it. It was kind of that passion that you've all witnessed tonight with Tom, with the woods, with the forestry, with the tone optimization, just trying to get the most out of it. You can see he's just ate up with it. Really excited us to work with you guys, and it's been a fun, creative endeavor, and now we're taking it to that next level with the custom pieces that we picked out. Looking forward to getting some of those in. But also with this whole situation with Tom coming down here, tomorrow the Earth Day Festival out at Mother's Brewery is going on. We're sponsoring the acoustic stage out there, and we were talking some with Molly Healy, who's one of the people putting it on, and I had mentioned Tom's TED Talk, which if you guys haven't seen, you should go check out. Tom did TED Talk on sustainable forestry and how Bedell and Breedlove viewed their role in that with building instruments. So I asked Tom if he would be interested in being the keynote speaker tomorrow night, and he said, yeah, book me. I'll book a flight now. He booked a flight the next day, came down here to do the seminar, and then tomorrow going to be so if you're not doing anything tomorrow, he'll be the keynote speaker tomorrow before Hillbenders go on. But just so great to see the passion you have with the thing. That reason we're in this business is because we're also passionate about instruments and the woods, and it also was food for thought for us because one of the things Tom mentioned in his TED Talk, he knows lots of musicians that are kind of activists. It's almost part of being an artist. You have that kind of activism in your genes, but rarely does a musician ever stop and say, where did the wood come from that I'm playing in this instrument? And I know personally I had never stopped to think of it. I just thought how gorgeous it was and how good it sounded. So that's where it kind of inspired us to start what we call Shop Sustainable here at the shop.
We're announcing that tonight.
Yep, we're announcing that tonight. Tomorrow's going to be our official launch, but we've already planted 530 trees this year. Our goal is to more educate people and have the artists and musicians ask where did the wood come from, and then start pressuring some of the manufacturers to kind of follow the footsteps that Tom has laid out. Which another really cool thing about Tom is he's told all the manufacturers all the research we've done about where you can go to get the papers and make sure this wood is living up to these standards is free. We're going to let you, if you want it, take it. I'm sharing all this information with you, which is cool. We want to encourage the consumer, the end user, to also pressure other manufacturers to do the same. To do that, any guitar that doesn't reach that standard, we're going to plant 5 trees for every guitar or mandolin we sell that doesn't hit that. For the ones that do kind of hit the standard that we've set, we're going to plant 1 tree, and again, it's more to raise awareness. Ultimately, it would be better not to clear cut anything, but something we can maybe do a little bit is to regrow some of these forests that have been devastated.
And one thing that since we're down this world right here of this and announcing this this initiative that we started here, one thing I really liked in talking with Tom, we've done a lot of talks with Tom over the last year and a half, and one of the things he said is we can't expect all these companies to turn on a dime and just change everything and just go at it. We want them to. Every one of us, right? We want that to happen. And we can't just go, you know what, we can't, everybody else that doesn't do what we say, we can't do this. But what we can do is let you start being educated on the fact that the guitar you have may or may not have been as sustainable as what we recommend it to be. That doesn't mean you can't own it. It's already cut, it's already been done. So there's some of that, factor into there. And if you love your guitar, that's fine. But I want you at least to understand what it is we're trying to do, what you're trying to do, and that we all kind of get closer to a better, perfect, situation.
Let me take it one step farther. Exactly what Jeremy and John are saying. We will make available to absolutely any other guitar company exactly where we source wood, what our story is, what our due diligence is. It's open, what do they call that?
Open source.
Open source. We're 100, because we care about saving the forest. It's not a competitive advantage, it's we really want to save the forest, right? So that's important. Most, and I want to say all, but I don't know that that's accurate, but I think all. If you wanted to buy a Collings, Santa Cruz already does what we do. A Martin, a Taylor. I don't know Gibson well enough to know with their new management how they do that. If you said, I really do want a D28 Martin, but I don't want a clear-cut top, they'll build it for you. They can go buy, they know where we buy ours. They put in an order with Alaska Specialty Woods here a month ago. Brent Cole, who runs it and owns it, called me up and he was just elated. He goes, guess who I got an order from? And that was because they wanted to have some non-clear-cut wood available. So it doesn't mean you have to buy a Bedell or a Breedlove. If you prefer some other brand, you can still honor the forest. You may have to wait a while because they may have to build it special. But what the three of us are saying is if we will take responsibility one by one and say, I did that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Quit doing that.
Yeah. if we want to just say each one of us can impact the future of our planet, play beautiful music, and have whatever guitar you want, those can all happen. And there's nothing I would like more than for the Chapmans. You don't carry Martin, do you?
No.
All right. If you did, I'm not asking you to.
We'd like to. Could you make a call?
Yeah, can you make a call, make that happen?
But if the Chapmans wanted to put Martin in, they could say, we'd like to put it in, but we want every one of the guitars that you ship us to not have a clear-cut top on it. Martin could do that. Whether they'll do it or not, I don't know, but they can.
They'll probably charge more than $2 a top to it, but
So all we're trying to do is just to say, we can all play. Okay, I have a quick advertisement before we break, if it's okay.
yeah, and then we got some giveaways. I know that's it.
That was
Only
it.
reason people are still here is they're waiting for the giveaway.
Okay.
Free stuff.
I'm sorry if we bored you to death. You might have some grandkids or kids that you'd like to get involved in the guitar business, playing, and you don't want to spend $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 or $10,000. We have over on this rack.
Forgot to go that way, sorry.
I'll do it quickly. They're called the Eco Collection. They have a solid top. We don't make anything that doesn't have a solid top. And they have what's generally in the industry called a laminate back and sides. The advantage of a laminate back and sides is it's plywood, okay? So it's got a thin piece of wood going this way, a thin piece of wood going this way, and another piece of wood going this way. And they're glued together. And so they're not as affected by the environment because you got the wood structure keeping it from moving, right? The problem is that forever, laminates are made with, let's say it's a mahogany back, then they put a basswood or a poplar or a really soft wood in the middle because nobody sees it and it's cheap. Have you ever tried to make a musical instrument out of poplar?
Yes.
It doesn't work.
No. Well, it was an electric.
Okay. It sounds terrible. So it's dampening all the sound that the actual species are making. So you've got your mahogany, you got your basswood, you got your mahogany, you got your glue in there. And so it's always considered that a solid wood guitar sounds way better than a laminate guitar, which has been true. It still is true, but not to the same degree. So what we started doing with the Eco Collection that we have here, we source the African mahogany. It's genuine, real African mahogany. It's not NATO, it's not a kume, it's not a fake wood like most of the inexpensive guitars are. It's real African mahogany. Then we put a center core in of real African mahogany, and then we put the inside of real African mahogany. So we get the advantage of the durability of the laminate, but it's all sound wood. And It completely changes when you compare that to any other guitar at that same price that's made with a typical laminate. I used to do a sales pitch on that. Now all I do is, right, John, you just hand them the guitar. You don't say anything. Because if they play it, then they go, how did you do that? Then they're interested. If you give them the pitch, it's like, oh, I just gave the pitch. I should have had you play it. But it's just completely changed. So you can buy a $450 incredibly sounding guitar. It won't sound exactly like these, but it'll sound fabulous. And if you've got somebody that's learning how to play or that just wants a beater guitar, or, you know, I throw one in the back of my truck and just have it in case an occasion comes up and I want it. It's a real breakthrough in technology. And so I'd encourage that. Yeah, John?
Why do you call it eco? Why, you mentioned it was an eco collection.
Right, because I have been to the forest of every piece of wood in those guitars. We monitor. We will, I don't know if we're going to have it done by January. We will have an app called Forest Chain. Our target was January. It's going to be sometime next year. Pandemic kind of changed a lot of stuff. But we're going to have a QR code on every Breedlove guitar that we sell. And you can actually put it on your phone. And if it's a US guitar, it will give you all the information on that guitar. So it'll tell you all about that piece of wood and that piece of wood and the frequencies and everything that's gone into this, the chain of custody and the copies of the permits of it being shipped from wherever to the store. It'll give you the whole story of the journey of that instrument. If it's an eco collection guitar, it won't by model. It will by, no, it won't by individual guitar, it will by model. So if, let's say that you got a all mahogany Discovery guitar, for $450, is that what they are?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. You pick it up and you play it and you go, oh my God, this sounds terrific. You will be able to, a year from now, go on the QR code and it'll tell you the journey that $450 guitar went on to get into your hands.
So that means no clear-cut wood on any of the import guitars, then?
There is no clear-cut wood on any guitar that we ever make. Everything is solid, and we have been to the forest of all the woods in every guitar. We're the only company I know of importing guitars from our contract factory in China that we supply the wood to the factory. They don't just go by. Most guitars, especially if you're buying a $200 or $300 guitar, the wood is not what they say it is. So if they say it's mahogany, it's not. It's Akume, it's NATO, it's some other mahogany lookalike. And a lot of that wood came from scrap from Indonesia, where illegally they're burning down these great old growth forests and they're planting palm oil plantations. And so all of the wood that they clear cut from that is byproduct. They don't consider it a resource and they sell it really cheap. And then guitar brokers buy some of that stuff and sell it to the guitar factories in Indonesia and China. They don't know where it came from. They don't know if it really is mahogany. In a lot of cases it's not. We don't do any of that. So you can feel as good about buying an Eco Collection Discovery guitar as you can a USA made guitar. So that was my little advertisement at the end.
So again, to point that out, this is one of the only brands that you can go that is sustainably done, all the way from import line, all the way to the USA builds. And again, he's made sure that all of that has been documented and there is absolute truth to that. So again, we definitely appreciate that.
Drawing.
All
So we're going to do a couple of drawings. I do want to mention a couple things, a couple extra. There's a crew in here that's been doing great all night, and I want you all to give them a big hand, which is our crew. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Jason, I want to say a special shout out to Jason. Jason just had, well, Jason didn't, but his wife just had twins yesterday. So he has not had any sleep for the last 48 hours, and yet he is here and has been working on it. So there could be your connection problem with your cameras today. Jason has no sleep. So congratulations to Jason. He had a boy and a girl yesterday, and he's doing, they're doing very, very well. So that's pretty awesome as well. So we're going to be doing a couple giveaways. Thank you guys for coming here tonight. Thanks to Tom for telling the story of all the stuff, woods, things that, you know. I will say, one of the coolest things is he just goes and he's got, what we've talked about tonight is only a quarter of what even we've had chats with, and then he keeps bringing new stuff to me every time we have conversations. So again, if you get a chance to bend his ear or let him bend yours, either one, do that, because super nice fella, and also got some really cool stuff. We got some giveaway bags from Breedlove. We got some stuff from the Acoustic Shoppe. I think there was some tickets for drawings. Does anybody have those in a bowl, and we'll be doing the pull-outs? Yeah, everybody get your tickets.
Everybody get a shirt if you didn't get a shirt.
Yeah, there's a shirt in the back for everybody that's here. There's T-shirts in the back that have a commemoration of tonight's event. So, all right. So what are we giving away, Jer?
Let's go with the Breedlove bags.
Okay. What are the bags? Pull a number, Keegan.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, put it in something and do a drawing. You got something to put it out of? A trash can?
How about an Acoustic Shoppe hat?
We can do that. Throw him a hat, Jay. Keegan is he's our social media guy. If you've been seeing stuff, and / Vanna White, that's right. All right. Who's our first? Tom's going to pick out the first one.
Don't cheat.
Yeah, whatever you do. What's our? I know this move. I now have to carry those glasses too.
The last 4 numbers are 7937.
Oh, that's me.
Ah, there you go.
I needed my glasses.
All right, next one.
2.
Looks like, huh?
Last 4 numbers are 7935.
Nexties.
7940.
That's me.
Ah!
You guys aren't making me walk far. Thanks.
Thanks.
You guys that came earlier are getting the good stuff.
Are you saying the stuff we put up for drawings not good? Only the Breedlove stuff? Is that what you just claimed? Hurtful. First he told me I can't.
This is a rough crowd, isn't it? 7939.
That's you.
Is that a 9?
Wait a minute.
I thought that's 7938.
I'm 3. Are you
Is that
8?
it?
You're 8.
She stole your bag earlier.
You should have put your eyeballs on.
One more of the Breedlove bags.
7938.
No,
Okay.
I'm
So give this to somebody else.
yeah.
Good. Draw another one.
So I don't.
That's very nice of you, sir.
I'd have took both of them.
7936.
36. Oh, that's you.
He was wanting the other one.
I don't know what's in it. Is it money?
It might. I don't. There's cool stuff in there. All right.
And this is a limited edition because we only had time to make one. Got mug with the Bedell like your shirt. I'll get you one, Tom.
Oh, that's cool.
It's got your head.
Yeah,
That's you on
thanks.
there.
That's very nice.
You gotta draw and give this couple.
One more.
There's only one left.
Oh. People who came late didn't get their.
7941.
4-1. Oh, I bet it was this guy that was right here.
7941.
Oh, that was me.
We got our last ticket. So.
All right.
Tom, here's a cup.
No, let one of our guests have it.
Someone in the back have one. Here's some trivia.
No, I don't have any smart enough to get any trivia. Again, I want to thank everybody. I do want to thank Dave Rogers, who also brought the 2 guitars. I was very short on Bedell guitars to show off here, so he brought 2. We just got in the coffee house, so now I have 3 in stock. That Cocobolo OM is one of the biggest sounding OMs I've ever played. I absolutely love it, and it actually wasn't normally part of that series, but we ended up ordering 2 of them, and we made it happen as out of the custom shop. So that was really cool. We had 2 of them, and this one is here right now. So. Check out the Breedloves. If anybody is here, there is a discount. We can work out on some stuff for the day too, for those folks who made it. And those folks who are at home, you guys don't get anything. Sorry. Just the way it is. No, thank you for joining us. If you do, share this, because I think it's really important to hear the story of what is going on now with these guitars, the woods, the stuff that's here. There are some really great opportunities to see some custom guitars that we have coming in, and also be able to build some for those at home or those who are here. So again, thank you so much, Tom, for being here. Thanks for being such a nice guy and letting me pick on you. And you can even talk about how bluegrass guys are.
Us and Celine.
Yeah, us and Celine. Anyway, thank you all for being here tonight. And yeah, Tom, one more big hand.
Thank you very much.